So thanks for attending the Oracle Integration webinar. I'm Jürgen Kress, part of the product management team, and today we will talk about successful Oracle integration projects and using DevOps tools from FlexDeploy. And with us is Dan Goerdt, the CEO of Flexagon. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, Jürgen, and everybody on.
So you are a long-time Oracle integration customer. When did you start your integration journey?
Boy, a longtime customer back, I don't know, approaching 15, 20 years ago on the SOA suite. A lot of experience there. And then, of course, the full evolution to heavy users of the integration cloud and as a ISV and Flexagon partner supporting the integration cloud.
So I'm sure you're happy to hear that we just released a new version of SOA Suite 14.1.10. So if anybody is using the on-premise product, you can upgrade to the latest version, and it allows you now to run it in a container. Cool. What are you going to present us today, then? What is Flexagon and what are you going to demo around FlexDeploy?
Well, it's a great story. We're talking about a few customers here in Heathrow and Schreiber Foods, but it's a much more broad perspective of how to help simplify all of the complexity of DevOps. How do we automate the movement of code configuration, data, metadata across test environments and into production? How do we do that and make that very simple for customers? So I'm going to present for about 10 minutes, provide an overview of the challenges and how that can be solutioned. And then I'll turn that over to Eric Jones, a solution architect here at Flexagon, to do a live demonstration.
Cool. So I will kick off the presentation with a short introduction. Let me try to move my slides. So quick housekeeping. Today's session is live and the presentation is being recorded. Please feel free to post your questions via the conference tool in the Zoom console. At the end of the webcast, we will answer your questions. Slides and an on-demand webcast will be posted at Oracle Video Hub. We will post announcements and links in the conference chat, and please complete the online survey at the end of the webinar. As we might present product roadmap information, please pay attention to the Oracle Safe Harbor statement. For today's agenda, I will kick it off with some short announcements and then hand it over to Dan. So some quick updates. Oracle integration is part of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure free trial program. If you want to test and deploy Oracle integration to connect your applications, you can use the trial for up to 30 days. As part of the documentation, we offer also some training and proof of concept material. So please look on the documentation sites for the live labs. That's a wonderful introduction to Oracle Integration 3. If you would like to know who are the experts who can help you, you can search for partners at Partner Finder, and you can visit Cloud Marketplace. There you can search for certified integration experts, and you can search for companies like Flexagon who offer third-party tools and pre-built integrations. If you have questions, if you would like to get the latest updates and share your success and best practices, please collaborate at Oracle Cloud Customer Connect. There you can start conversations with your questions, you can submit innovations, and you can earn badges. We launched the latest Oracle integration certifications for sales solution engineer. The 2025 exams and online trainings are now available for the Oracle partner community. We run every quarter a product update with the latest information and new features. If you would like to learn more, you can watch the December webcast on demand, and you can subscribe to our newsletter where you receive the latest updates. All webcasts are posted at Oracle Video Hub. If you subscribe to the channel, you will also get today's presentation. For regular updates, please subscribe to the Oracle Integration newsletter. The quarterly updates from our team provide all product information, events, success stories, white papers, and training information. With that short introduction, I would like to hand over to you, Dan.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jürgen. Appreciate it. And I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll be off and running. If you can confirm you can see that, would be wonderful.
You can see your screen.
All right. Yeah, very, very good. Well, appreciate that. And so as Jürgen mentioned up front, and as I briefly alluded, it's all about simplifying DevOps for not only Oracle integration, which is the center point of this webcast, but also applications and other things that that you're dealing with, right? Oracle integration doesn't stand alone, of course. It's there for a purpose. And whether that's application to application, business to business, I'm solving those needs. And so, as Jürgen mentioned, I lead Flexagon, and we're an ISV and an Oracle partner, a software company that provides a DevOps platform for Oracle and beyond. You see some information in terms of our achievements. There's some links here that I think will be shared with you in terms of some best practices and specific detail and other resources. But really getting into this and setting a context, you're all dealing with different complexity and challenges. And if we're really back at a macro level, it's things like the business demand for, we need more capability, faster, more cost effective. We're dealing with our what we call deep-rooted systems, whether that's an e-business suite of the world. It's technology that has solved many problems and is still vital in many cases to your overall IT landscape. The example that Jürgen referenced in terms of Oracle SOA Fusion middleware, some of that lives on. And how do you manage that more effectively while you're expanding the technology, heavily adopting Oracle Cloud integration, applications, BI, database, custom application development, and trying to address, in general, non-integrated tool chains. So many tools, all very powerful, but not integrated. And you're dealing with the complexity of that while also handling your security and compliance needs, which keep getting ramped up and up and up. And so what does that really mean? And how does that play as a customer into your overall journey? So in this presentation, what we're going to talk about are some of the ways you can solve the problems. We're going to talk more specifically later and demonstrate how FlexDeploy, our DevOps platform, helps solve these. But you as customers and or partners that are helping the customers go to the cloud in a number of different ways. So in this case, we talked about Heathrow and Schreiber, two very different examples where Heathrow did a light switch move away from their traditional technology like e-business suite and cut over directly to the Fusion applications and immediately used Oracle Cloud integration as the core platform, while they also extended to some customized billing capabilities using Apex running on OCI. Contrasting that with the Schreiber, who also heavily uses Oracle Cloud integration, but they've been a user of Fusion middleware, the SOA suite, and they continue to use that today. So while they had a middleware platform based on the Fusion middleware stack, they then built everything net new in cloud integration while they continue to run with e-business suite, but moving that from on-prem onto the cloud. I threw a couple other examples in here, but the common patterns are that you can be on either extreme, if you will, with Heathrow and Schreiber, but many like Avery Dennison, H&I, and others are phasing in their overall move to the cloud, leveraging the existing technology, adopting the Fusion applications, adopting cloud integration, and other technologies, because, of course, Oracle doesn't only stand alone, other Microsoft technologies, Salesforce, others that need to be integrated in with it. So lots of paths to the cloud. And so as part of that, why DevOps? Well, it's to deal with some of these challenges, right? Ineffective dev and ineffective ops. So how do we address these things? So I'm not going to read through this, but it's some examples of what the development teams, the operations, the leadership team, release management are dealing with to really get around or support the business demand. And so that's anywhere from legacy, if you will, processes and tools, the cost of the resources to be able to do these things, the many tools and technologies that you're dealing with, all impacting your ability to be resilient, to be responsive to the business, to be able to drive your overall development and release processes effectively. And as part of that, as I mentioned earlier, it's not only the core, how do we deal with manual activities and automating those, but how do we address challenges around security, auditability, compliance in general. And so the best practices come along a number of ways, but broadly speaking, it's all toward automating processes, highly securing them, driving higher quality into what you might call a software supply chain. Well, how do we do that? The foundation is automation. How do we eliminate the manual activities, automate the processes to drive that speed and productivity? The next piece is, well, we need to do that at quality. So how do we do that? Well, we inject quality measures into our processes directly in there and make it a natural part of the process, and not only inject the quality, it might be test automation as an example, but also make sure that we can trigger actions to be proactive on dealing with quality issues. Similarly, with security, let's be very comprehensive in how we apply security. It might be to address vulnerabilities, so you're doing code scanning. Clearly, it's role-based segregation of duties across everything, and many things beyond that to make sure we have a secure end-to-end environment. And we need to be repeatable, right? We need to have consistently repeatable delivery pipelines that have embedded governance and compliance, not something that's tacked on or an afterthought. It's embedded into the process. It seamlessly helps you achieve not only that heavy automation, but the governance and controls, the compliance and audit requirements. So with that said, how do we do that? And why are we having a discussion today? And what does Flexagon do to help this problem space? Well, it's all about our FlexDeploy DevOps platform that's going to do a few things. All right, it's going to integrate that end-to-end tool chain. So that thing I mentioned up front about lots of tools, not integrated. So from planning all the way through monitoring, we're going to integrate those tools that you might have so it drives productivity and seamless end-to-end development and release management across the board. We're going to automate a tremendous amount of the process. You might put that into several categories: build automation, artifact management. So how are we going to take code, configurations, data, metadata, create artifacts, store them in an artifact repository, and automate the deployment process? And that's very important. It's because it's foundational in nature for automation. But now we're going to orchestrate the releases. We're going to have these seamless release pipelines. How are you going to move your code, configurations, data, metadata across test, QA, and production? How do you do that repeatedly? How do you inject the governance controls, an approval, a schedule, a test into the equation, right, into the process? And then how are we going to manage that iteratively through our production releases, whether you're deploying daily, weekly, monthly, still quarterly? Of course, we have quarterly updates in the application space. How are you going to do that very effectively? And then how are you going to have visibility to everything through dashboards, through reports, things that can help you both drive continuous improvement, understand your release readiness capabilities. Are we ready to go to production with this? But also all the way on the other end, how do we support our compliance requirements, our auditing, that sort of thing, not to mention general troubleshooting. So let's do that comprehensively, and let's do that with a lot of out-of-the-box capability for things like Oracle that I'll talk about in a bit. So the secret sauce with all the heavy engineering to support Oracle. Now, before we get to a broader perspective and then deep dive into Oracle integration, got a picture here that says, hey, there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of categories of these tools, from managing your secrets to agile planning and service management, source control, so on and so forth. So as you scan down that list and then you look across, what's this chart saying? It's saying a couple things. One, there's tremendous amount of native capability built into the FlexDeploy platform that you can take advantage of. Two, the many tools that you might have or are considering using, we have out-of-the-box integrations to make it very easy to snap those tools seamlessly into the end-to-end process. So, examples are the many versions or providers of Git, You might be using Oracle's Git, Oracle as a provider. You might be using GitLab or ADO, so on and so forth. Other things like test automation. Well, we might be using open source tools for integration cloud. The examples of Postman, or going back to the SOA Suite days, Heavy SOAP UI, that sort of thing. But we also might be using the Excel QAs of the world, or Tricentis Tosca, or OpKey. So we integrate naturally with all of those tools. So the idea is have an integrated end-to-end process, leverage the native capability of FlexDeploy, integrate with the tools that you already have or might use in the future, and then very importantly, the platform is extensive, so there's an integration framework for anything. So if we don't have something to support your tool that you want to integrate, there's a framework to make that easy to snap in. Now, very importantly, why we partner with Oracle is that while we have this DevOps platform that can work with any technology, we do the heavy lifting, the heavy engineering to be able to support the Oracle tech, both heavy cloud and the traditional, all out of the box. So what this really represents is a combination of database and developer tools and middleware. The example in the middleware space that Jürgen referenced earlier and then I alluded to is the SOA suite, part of the Fusion middleware. So WebLogic, SOA, OSB, so on and so forth, all the way down to ODI. So heavy support to automate all of those processes for building and deploying. But very importantly, moving into the cloud and applications, what we have is both the traditional tech in the e-business suites of the world, but all of the Fusion applications, the configuration management associated with that, the BI, BIP, analytics, EPM, so on and so forth, and all of the cloud infrastructure is what many of you might know as cloud platform services. So we're focused on integration cloud today, as well as the API gateway, and be able to support that. But it goes well beyond that, so we can automate many of those processes for all of these technologies. All right. Now, with that said, we talk about automation being the foundation, and that is very much the case. So today we're going to double click in, and hopefully we're able to bring Eric online to do a live demo. But we have the integration. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Eric. We have the integration cloud, the APIs, where for integration, we're going to take those integrations, connections, lookups, libraries. We're going to package those up, deploy them automatically, manage that entire life cycle, as well as with the API gateway. So Eric's going to drive that in detail in a minute, but I included a few other things in here for applications because, as we said, the integration, or Oracle integration, does not stand by itself. You're integrating other things, both Oracle technologies like the Fusion apps, e-business suite, as well as other third-party tools that you have in your mix. So with that said, Eric is the principal solution architect here for Flexagon. He's going to bring this to life for all of you, firing up really a demonstration of FlexDeploy for Integration Cloud that ties to all of these customers in different ways. But I'll just go ahead and turn this over to Eric and bring this thing to life. Eric?
All right, thanks, Dan. All right, so let's start with the project perspective in FlexDeploy. And so what the projects are is essentially a model of the different software components an organization would have that they need to manage the build, deploy, release lifecycle for. So the focus of today, we're going to drive an example through this OIC Gen 3 integrations, which is just that, a project representing all of the OIC Gen 3 objects that I have that need to manage the delivery through my environments too. But before I start there, I'm going to start with a high-level concept, which is the release and pipeline in FlexDeploy. And so this is really independent of the specific technology, but we'll run an example with Oracle Integration Cloud. But the release is representative of a delivery of software components ultimately into production. So for this release, I have an example that I've called the Lisbon Sprint, and I have components in for some of the Oracle Fusion technologies. Of course, the focus today is going to be for Oracle Integration Cloud. I have what's called a package or a feature within OIC Gen 3 called Allied 21 that just has a couple of integrations that I'm changing for this feature. But then to kind of round out the release, I have more than just OIC in there. I've got some functional configurations for Oracle Fusion applications, as well as some of the analytics components from Oracle Transactional BI. So this is making up the content of my release, which will ultimately be delivered across what's called a pipeline. And so a pipeline in FlexDeploy is not unsurprising, similar to pipelines in really all DevOps platforms these days. So the representation here is an example, delivering changes across the multi-stage pipeline for test, QA, and production. Each stage is modeled with optional gates and then the steps. So not to spend too much time, but in the test environment, because we need to iterate quickly, there's no gates defined. But as we move into the more controlled environments, we're going to have traditional gates like obtaining approvals, scheduling for a particular time window, or you may have more advanced gates where we're running automated tests, automated security scans, and we want to check the outputs of those things and make sure we're achieving the quality that is required. When it comes time to the deployments, the deploy step that you see in each stage, that's a generic step. And essentially what it's doing is it's iterating over the components in the release and invoking its deploy process. One last comment in production. Again, I have an approval gate, but this one's an integration with ServiceNow. So at runtime, we can associate a change number, and FlexDeploy will hold at the gate until that underlying change is approved in ServiceNow. To model these pipelines, it's all low-code development. So if I want to add in a new environment, resequence, I can edit to model in my gates and steps through drag and drop. So with that, let me switch back to do a live execution for Oracle Integration Cloud. So if I drill into the project, you'll see my execution history of any builds, deploys, test automations that I've been doing. Just a little bit on the configuration. From a source code perspective, I have my OIC integration stored in a GitHub repository. So I can see that directory structure just maps my structure of my OIC development artifacts. Next, FlexDeploy uses what's called a package-based model, which is integrated in with source control. And so what happens here during the discovery process is FlexDeploy is going to interrogate that Git repository and discover all of the objects like the integrations, the libraries, the lookups, etc. And so what this discovered file catalog allows me to do is create what's called a package, which represents a feature. So here I have a package named Allied 21, which I'm using that naming convention because I'm linking this package to a work item or issue within an agile planning tool called Allied 21. So I happen to be integrated in with Jira. And when I define the technical components that are changing as part of that feature, I simply view the file catalog, select the items that I want to add, and click Save to add it back to the package. And so if you recall, this Allied 21 package is one of the components in my release. So when I run the build process now on Allied 21, that's going to check out these two objects from source control, assemble them into a artifact, which is a zip file containing these components, and store that versioned in the FlexDeploy artifact repository. And that happens by way of a build workflow that we create for OIC. Subsequently, when I deploy it, FlexDeploy will connect to the target, unzip the objects in the artifact, and then import the objects into the target and provide traceability into all the audit information like who deployed the integration, what, where, and when, and then tying it to the tool chain like the commit ID and the agile planning issue. So with that, let me switch over and do a live execution. Looks like I got logged out here, so just let me quickly sign in. Of course, it's two-factor authentication. 1 second. So what I'm going to do when I get logged in here is I'm just going to launch the console in my dev environment and make a real-time change. So one of the integrations in that Allied 21 package was this city weather. And so I'm just going to make a very simple change here. And all I'm going to do is increment this counter in the description and then make a change, finish it in the wizard. Save the integration. And then go back to my list in the console. And so because I'm using GitHub, the first thing I want to do is get this city weather change that I made committed into my Git repository. So on one hand, a developer could export it, use their local Git client to commit it, and then they could perform a build. But what we've done to make that a smooth process for the developer is provide a browser extension called FlexDeploy Actions, which is integrated in with a lot of the cloud platforms like OIC. And so it selects that action automatically. And because it's integrated in with OIC, I can select the integration or object that I've changed and click submit. And what that's doing is sending an SSL message back to FlexDeploy via a webhook so some action can be taken. And that action I have configured to invoke what's called a utility workflow. And you can see that it's running and it's passing in the object that I selected and it just finished. But if I drill into this workflow, it's using Git operations to first clone, then it's running a export to export that city weather integration that was selected, overlaying it into my local Git repository, and then performing the commit and the push back to the server. The next level of automation, if I go into my OIC project, is we'll see that the build ran immediately using continuous integration as soon as that push from the utility workflow was completed. And we'll see the commit ID linked to the build request. So if I click on that, I will see the exact change that I made. Here you can see I incremented the counter. I drill into the workflow execution. Pretty simple. It's cloning the objects in the package that I'm building, and then it uses the build operation from the OIC plugin, which is essentially putting those objects into a zip file and storing it versioned as an artifact in the inbuilt artifact repository. The Files tab is going to show me the details of what's in that artifact, tying it down to the specific commit and committer details. You'll notice post-deployment or post-build that FlexDeploy automatically is deploying into that first test environment. That's because Allied 21 is in my Lisbon sprint. As soon as there's a new build version of Allied 21, it creates what's called a release snapshot and sends it to my pipeline for execution. So let's look at that orchestration. And so here's my running view of the pipeline. What's actually running through is a snapshot consisting of the most recent build versions for each one of the components in the release. So that's what's orchestrating. And we see what's happened is it's made its way through the test stage. The first thing it did, since there were no gates, is run the automated deployment and see what happened. because I made a change to an object in Allied 21 for OIC, it deployed and it was successful. The other components, because these versions were part of the previous snapshot, FlexDeploy does not need to redeploy them. So you see that intelligent and built-in change detection. But when the deployment occurred, I can drill in. I can see the step detail this time for the deployment. The required step in the deploy workflow is going to be the deploy operation from that OIC plugin. But I've added in another couple of steps that is pretty common that we see from our customers. The ask was that they want to, before deployment, take a backup of the integrations that I'm about to update. So I have a little Groovy script here that, based on the files in the package, is generating the input that's required for the backup. And then I'm using that backup operation on the OIC plugin to effectively export those IAR files from the target environment before I deploy and overwrite them. And so I'll see those backups get stored on this reports tab in the form of these two IAR files. Post deployment, similar to the build, we'll see the contents of the artifact, but in this case, we'll see the deployment status down to the object level. So because I changed city weather, it was deployed and it was successful. Hello world is not changed, so that deployment was skipped. So another level of that change detection. Just real briefly go back to my pipeline execution and walk through what's happened. Post deployment, I'm running some automated tests that I have in Postman. So FlexDeploy will execute those tests and get the results back for viewing. But then, very importantly, I have a quality gate that's checking the outputs of my tests. And if I have 100% test success, it's systematically passing the gate. Similarly, for security scanning, whether static code analysis, vulnerability scanning, DAST, you can have rules to define, criteria for success, like fail this gate if I have any critical or high security vulnerabilities. So you have some of that enforced in automated governance versus having manual checks. It's now waiting for approval from the quality lead. So at this point, the link group would receive an email notification that they can either reply to, and FlexDeploy will process, or the email also has a link to come to this release dashboard where it's interactive. They can drill in, review what will be deployed if they approve the request, and then either approve or reject. So the idea then is, anytime there's a change to any one of the components in the release and a build is performed, whether manually or through continuous integration, FlexDeploy is going to put that new component version that was built into a release snapshot and start a new pipeline execution. Many of these executions will kind of stop because they'll get superseded by a new one. But because the snapshot is cumulative, meaning it contains all the changes from the snapshot before it overlaid with the new build components, really only one snapshot is going to make its way all the way to production as your release matures. Once it clears the gates and deploys, that really ends the life cycle of the release. So for the next release, you would create a new one, add in the components that are going to change for that release, and then very likely bind it to the same pipeline, which is how you're going to get that same consistent and repeatable process from release to release. I want to spend just a few minutes in some of the insights that you're going to get from FlexDeploy, starting with the reports. And as you can see, there's a number of reports here. Anything from, the audit information of what was deployed, where, when, and by who, tying it to the tool chain, as well as results of tests, security scans, approvals that have happened in the system, etc. But the one report that I want to show is the environment history report. And that is what's going to show you every single software component that's deployed over time, giving you the standard audit fields like what version coming from what package and project were deployed, what, where, and by who, but very importantly, tying in the tool chain. So in this case, you can see city weather came from the main branch in my GitHub. Here was the commit ID, and it's tied to the Ally 21 issue in Jira. When it comes time to my production deployments, you can see that they're tied to this change request that was governing the delivery into production. So when it comes time to compliance, right, this is going to be the information that your auditors are looking for. So rather than spending time, collecting this information, scraping together the data from the tool chain, it's really captured automatically when you're integrated into these planning and service management tools, source control, and using FlexDeploy to manage the delivery. Last insight I want to cover is the dashboards. And dashboards, similar to pipelines and workflows, can be designed by the end customer. So I have just a couple of sample dashboards that I've created. This one more targeted to the developer, where I have metrics such as what's the deployment success rate over the last 30 days. This panel is collecting any tasks that are assigned to me. So these are the approvals that I have that are assigned to a group I'm a member of. So I can easily identify, drill in, review, and approve my tasks. When you're integrated in with source control and agile planning tools, FlexDeploy is going to show the commits and the issues that are tied to recent build requests, and then have drill down capability to go into in context into these third-party systems to view the commits and the work items. One more dashboard I've created is showing some of the performance metrics. The top couple are showing DORA metrics, specifically deployment frequency and lead time for change, which is going to allow me to set goals, measure how I'm doing, and continuously improve my DevOps processes over time. When you're using test automation and security scanning, FlexDeploy can plot those results over time, and you can use these metrics to assess release readiness. All right, I think in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. So not able to go super deep, but hopefully that gives you the basic concepts of how FlexDeploy can manage change over time for Oracle Integration Cloud, and obviously other technologies like I had Fusion and Oracle Transactional BI, even though we didn't go into the details of those technologies. So I think now we've got time for a few questions, and hopefully people have been putting them in the chat, and maybe I'll turn it over to you, Dan, to see what questions might be waiting for us.
Yeah, Eric, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Jürgen.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice demo. We have a couple of questions. If you have more, please feel free to post them in the Q&A tool. So then you answered some of the questions. Let's read them out for the benefit of all. There's a question, first one, please share 2 examples for quality used in OCI.
Yeah, on that one, that can mean a couple different things. Typically, when we're talking about quality, it's injecting things such as automated tests. But if it didn't come through in the demo and discussion, many customers start without having that automated testing involved. So you can model the manual activities into the equation. But as we mature, of course, we want to automate those tests. So the 2 examples I use that you can integrate into your release pipelines, one Eric showed in the demo, which was a Postman integration. So after he deployed the change that he made for OIC, it automatically triggered that Postman test, brought the results back, and allowed you to inject that and integrate that into your end-to-end flow. The question was asked related to OCI, so I used a different non-integration cloud example, specifically with container scanning. So if you're using Oracle Kubernetes engine, deploying those changes with FlexDeploy, you can not only deploy them into the Kubernetes cluster, into OKE, but you could kick off scans of those Docker images, for example, using Anchor or Docker Bench. Last but not least, I didn't mention it, but because we brought it up and the fact that Jürgen referenced the latest release of the SOA suite, that's another example where you might use SOAP UI, trigger those tests just like you did using Postman for Integration Cloud.
Great. What are typical customer benefits that you see?
Yeah, a few of the benefits. So what are the outcomes that we're getting here? It's a couple fold. One is the speed of delivery. All right. So because we've automated a lot of these processes, we take the manual activities out, things that are causing problems, right? Oh, we deployed this, but we forgot that, right? Things that take a long time on a day in and day out basis, and certainly at a macro release level, it can ultimately applying these DevOps practices helps you shorten up your release cycles. Another example is around the quality. So whether you're orchestrating new automated security and functional tests, or just better orchestrating your manual activities as part of your release process, you can drive higher levels of quality. So when you go into your production environment, you're guaranteed it's going to work, and it's going to work every time. My third example of value is the compliance. Right, so you spend a lot of time as development teams, operational teams, release management, figuring out how you can support things like your audits. Well, all of that, as Eric showed in the demonstration, is just all done as part of applying these processes. And when using FlexDeploy, it's all there right at your fingertips.
Great. Do you support with FlexDeploy also Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and on-premise software?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can run FlexDeploy anywhere, both on-prem in any cloud like OCI, and it also is supported. We have a SaaS version of FlexDeploy, so you've got flexibility in terms of how you want to run FlexDeploy.
Great, and you offer it for Oracle Integration and SOA suite?
Correct, and so for the integration layer, it's both the integration cloud, and that's core OIC proper, if you will, with the integrations, connections, lookups, libraries, the B2B componentry, API gateway, even though it's an extension, if you will, of Oracle integration, but also the SOA suite, the traditional Fusion middleware, your Beeple composites, your OSB projects, the WebLogic configurations associated with those, the B2B, MFT, so on and so forth.
And including third parties, so you have a central CI/CD too.
Absolutely. So in the mixed bag, of course, our customers that have the Oracle tech, it's there comprehensively, but Oracle customers use other tech, so you can combine all of that, into one process, into one platform.
Great. What's the best way to learn more and to get started?
Yeah, I think reaching out, as a matter of fact, investigating yourselves. Go to flexagon.com. There are a lot of resources out there, interactive demos. You can learn a lot by visiting the website, but also, in this presentation, we've got other links to case studies, as well as just reaching out and requesting a demo. So if you want to fire this up in the context of what you're doing and have that discussion, by all means, we're willing to talk live on that as well.
Great. So please visit the Flexagon website if you would like to learn more. In the survey at the end of the webinar, please write a comment in the survey, and we will reach out to you. For more information on Oracle integration, please visit the resource page at bit.ly/links/OIC. You can also visit the integration website. And if you want to try it, there's a free trial available for 30 days. And as part of the documentation, we also have some on-demand labs. Please subscribe to the newsletter and follow us on our blog for more information and upcoming events. Dan and Eric, thank you very much for the nice presentation. Sorry for the hiccups. We finally got it together. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to Dan and the team. or to myself, and you can also find all the links at the resource page bit.ly/links/OIC. The Oracle Integration Product Management team is here to help you. Neil Kominski in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Paolo Mota in South America, Ravi Chaplani in North America, Ravi Pinto in Asia and India, Steve Tintle in ASEA, and myself for any kind of partner and marketing questions. Thank you very much, Dan and Eric, for the nice presentation. We hope to see you soon in 3 months for the next webcast. Thank you for attending.